Hey backers, Erik here again. We're back with an update about the hardware. Since we shipped the beta kits out, we've made quite a few changes. One of the biggest ones is the form of damping that we're using.
This new magnetic damper system has more advantages than any other damper system we've come up with before. It's a lot simpler, it doesn't require tight tolerances, and it's easy to see that it's working. There's no oil that's causing a mess or really finicky to work with. It has less parts, and the whole thing snaps together and requires no glue at all. So we're really happy with the direction we've taken it, and we're really happy with the results it's giving us when we print with it. Unlike the oil damper, the magnetic damper doesn't actually make physical contact with the mirror or any moving part. Instead, it uses magnetism to cause eddy currents. And because those eddy currents are only present when the mirror is moving, our dampening system basically disappears and has no effect when the mirror comes into position or when the mirror comes to a rest. And that means that when we give the mirror the exact same signal as any time before, it comes into the exact same position because there's nothing stopping it or affecting where that position would be. So currently we have about 160 beta testers that already have their kits, and many of them have already built their kits. And so it was important for us to make our new magnetic damper something that could just snap on to their already built printers. That way we don't have to send them as many parts, and they don't have to build a whole new printer just to get this new additional feature. So the benefits of SnapFit are really showing here. I mean, instead of having to build an entirely new printer, we can just send a few backwards compatible parts and have them click on to already built printers, and the printer is sort of updated and now works better. We've opened an online store just for the beta testers. That way the people that have their printers can order parts and get add-ons and get hacks, and if they break something, it's easy to get a replacement in the mail. And the magnetic damper is something we've added to the store. So all the beta testers are able to order one of these magnetic dampers and get their printer working great. This new magnetic damper add-on gives the printer some new abilities. Before, we had a lot of memory or hysteresis, and that meant that, say, if we were printing two skyscrapers, one taller than the other, when we finished doing the layers of the first one, that would actually affect the position of the second skyscraper. And so the second skyscraper would be likely to fail or move over suddenly as soon as the first one was done printing. So it stopped us from doing prints that had islands or had rapids or complexities like this. And now that we don't have hysteresis, we can do much more complex prints. Prints that have 4 or 5 islands are possible. That's why you can see that we're printing things like the Yoda and the Rook now. Prints that are more complicated and more impressive.
So we're happy with how well magnetic damping is performing. So we're ready to ship that to beta testers and get some feedback from them and see if there's any improvements to be made.
So typically at Peachy Printer, when the team focuses on a problem, it takes between a few hours and a few weeks to solve it. And solving this magnetic dampening problem took a good 3 months.
In the first few days, we had some tests that looked very promising, but it took us a lot longer than expected to figure out how the physics worked. And once we figured that out, it took a few iterations to get something that works as a kit as well.
We took a lot of time exploring paths that turned out to be dead ends. But every time that we hit a dead end, it was pretty valuable. We learned something about what we didn't know about magnetics, and we learned that it doesn't work that way, or it doesn't work this way. Maybe it works that way. And that was quite a long process. I got to a point where I just thought, we have so many theories, but none of us are really sure which one is the way that it works. So I made a really large example of the type of magnetic dampening we were doing. And that turned out to be a really valuable move. I basically had built this toy where we could play with magnetic dampening in the situation that we were working with the printer, a rotational magnetic damper. And within about 3 minutes of playing with it, I discovered that we were trying to center the magnet around the axis of rotation, and that when you do that perfectly, you get actually no magnetic dampening at all. So we were aiming to do something that caused no magnetic dampening at all, and we were probably getting it off center just a little bit. We were getting it wrong enough that we were still seeing some dampening and wondering why we couldn't amplify it. And so that was a big realization. We learned about the cancellation effects of eddy currents. So many paths like that happened, and it's been a very interesting learning experience. And I am going to build a lot more toys to to learn about things I don't know about. So after having the realization that we needed to stay off center with our magnetism, we were able to quickly build a printer that worked with magnetic damping. But that printer, the first one that we built, it had a lot of problems still. We needed really tight tolerances, and you had to build the thing very precisely for it to work. And it was hard to see that it was working because there was this tiny little gap that you had to look in and make sure nothing was rubbing. And the whole thing was just not very good as a kit. So we had to go back to the drawing board completely. We had to scrap that printer and come up with something that was easier to build and easier to see that it was working.
So now we have a Galvo that's easy to build. We're happy with how it's performing, and anyone who's built a printer will have an add-on that snaps right onto your printer. That will be available in the beta tester store, so try it out and give us some feedback.
Now that we have a magnetic damper that we're happy with, we've moved on to some other issues the printer has. For one, we're focusing on all the theories we have about what's causing the holes in the prints. We have a lot of these theories, so we're building tests to prove or disprove each theory. Another thing that we have is a new circuit, and the circuit has new features. So we're testing those, and we're also working on getting the circuit to be an integral part of the structure of the physical printer itself. So thank you for all your support and your passionate involvement in this project. We'll see you next time.